Hey, so welcome back once again, and today we are going to talk about the functions in the programming. So we have left, this is the place where we have left in the previous video, and in this video we got to talk about the functions and some operators and some flow control operations here. Okay, so let's get this started with. So finally, we gotta see here, right? Let's say we have constructed the variables, so we already know about the variables or the data. So we need to process the data in order to get the valuable information. Okay, so now we have a blueprint which is called the gun. Okay, the entire blueprint is called as the gun. The gun can able to shoot and it can able to damage the player. So this is what the functionality of the gun. So I need to create a function over this. So before writing a function, there is no defined rule that you can write a function here or for this purpose or this purpose. No, it's purely up to you. Okay, starting from the getter, setter, simple functions to the advanced functions like tracing and whatever the things that you imagine in the game, you can write a function if you felt convenient. Okay, so function is the process of converting the data into the valuable information. Okay, keep this in mind. And now I gotta press the plus button here, start writing the function. So it is like the weapon, it's a gun, right? So it will shoot the player. So if it was shooting up, there is lot of inputs are required. So what is meant by the inputs? The function needs some data. So it will use that data and it will process some other data and it can able to give the information. So like for example, I can say what is the damage the gun can able to do. Okay, so I gotta give the input and what is the final outcome. So if it hits something or whatever, so that should be the final output of this. We will talk about the output later. Okay, for now I'm going to say like damage amount. So it should be a float. For now I can just say float. Okay, so for the float, here we have um, we need to damage the player, right? So how should we do that? So for making this, I guess the level blueprint will be the good place for the stuff. Like the character can able to shoot, right? So level blueprints, we gotta demonstrate this. But in the actual game, you need to write the code at least in the character blueprint. That is BP third person. Okay. So I gotta get into the level blueprint, and I have created two variables here. One is health, and another one is armor. So right click here and just type the one keyboard. So you gotta see the debug key. Okay. So in the debug key, when I press the one key, this event will get fired. Okay. In the next video, we will talk about some of the programmatical concept and slowly we will understand the purpose of events. Okay. For now, if I press the one key, this event will get called. So if I just press the button, now you see here what should need to happen. So I'm going to write a function over this. So here in the functions, you gotta see, I need to click the plus button and it gonna say the damage player. This is the name of the function and this is the function name should be the purpose of the function basically, okay? So this is the damage player and I gotta give the input that should be from the external source. Like it can be a gun, it can be an environmental damage, whatever. Okay, we need to take it as the input so that it could be more convenient for us. So it will be like the damage. Okay, damage. Now what should we need to do is first we need to check out whether we have the armor, right? So I am drag and drop this one here, holding the control button. So remember how to get the variable. So I'm going to get the armor, current armor variable, and don't forget this one. Like whenever you are creating the variables, make sure you have given the default value, else it will be like um, it will be 0. By default, the value will be 0. Then it's like there is no armor, there is no health. Okay, so make sure you have given 100 for both the variables. So armor, if the armor is greater than 0, which means if the armor is 0, then the health will get decreased. So that is the concept. Okay, so click here. So drag and drop a pin and just like the normal mathematics, you can just write the greater than. Okay, so it should be the greater than. So greater than 0, then we need to say here, we need to tell the blueprint like a true or false condition. For true or false condition, this is the first flow control that we are seeing in Unreal Engine blueprints. We need to call it as branching. What is meant by the branching? So it means like whether we should need to execute this part based on the result of this comparison. So right click on this and just type branch, or you can simply use a keyboard shortcut as well, which is the hold on the B key in your keyboard, and now you're gonna see this node will just show up. So you gotta connect the execution pin like this. The order of execution matters here. Okay, if the armor is greater than 0, if the condition is true, then we should need to reduce the armor. Okay, so I'm going to drag and drop this armor once again, and I'm going to subtract the amount, I mean like the damage that we are going to give to the armor. Okay, so instead of dragging the pin like this, you gotta right click here and just say damage. So our variable will be in the last, get damage. Okay, so what we should need to do, we need to reduce the armor, so we need to subtract it again and subtract it again. So don't forget, like this will give you a normal value. So we should need to set the variable. What variable? The armor. So we need to set the armor variable, and then we need to just use the print string node. Now we should need to talk about this one. So the print string node we have already used, right? So the print string is actually the function that we have used. So it is taking lot of the input, like we have the damage input for this function. So you see um, in string whether it can able to print to the screen. So it is taking all the information from the user perspective, that is we. So we need this function to print it to the screen, like displaying in the left corner, and we need to print in the log, which means the output log. So what is the text color you need? So there are a lot of parameters, right? So for this one, I'm going to give us the green color, which means the armor is there and it could do something. So I gotta print it for the 5 seconds. Okay, now you see this is the float variable, the value will be float. Okay, because we are doing the operation with the armor and the damage, both the the armor and the damage variable both are float data type, so the output also will be float. But if we gotta correct it here, Unreal Engine blueprints is smart enough to detect, like, okay, we need to use a helper macros. We will talk about the macros later. So it will automatically convert it to the string data type. Okay, now if I gotta give the play icon, if I gotta press the 1, oh, nothing happens. Why? Because we should need to call the function. Okay, we have two things are there. One is like the function declaration and another one is the function definition. Now you have give the definition for your function, which means you have successfully write the logic for damaging the player. But where you need to tell the computer, I need to tell the blueprint like where you should need to damage the player. If I press the one key in the blueprint, yes, you need to damage the player. Then you need to drag and drop into the scene. Okay. For now, I'm going to give the damage as manual one. So let's say the damage will be like around 25. So what is this target input and what is this damage? So target input basically means where this function presents. So we can able to understand that only if we had talked about the object oriented programming concept, which we will talk about that later. So damage 25. Okay, now 25 will be substituted here. Now this entire logic will take place. So let's see now. If I press the one key, you see in the top left our value is getting reduced. But here we have a problem. If the value will become a 0, then it is no problem. You can say that, okay, what's the problem? There is no problem, right? But instead of making it as the 25, let's make it as the 15. So if I start damaging, now you see the value becomes the negative value suddenly. So this is like uh, yeah, logical human error, which means the computer actually calculates the thing and you have written a logic, but the value get exceeding at some point. Okay, so for this purpose we have a term in the game development. It was a mathematical term that is called clamping the value. Okay, so I'm going to disconnect this pin. So what is the keyboard shortcut for this? It's hold on the alt key and just hover over the connection, just left click on it, it will be disconnected. So right click on the value here, just drag and drop and type clamp. So it will be the clamp float. So clamp float. So in this the minimum value could be 0. So we should not go below the 0, which means we should not allow the negative values. So maximum values could be the damage that we have taken. Okay. So if I gotta press this here, now if I press the 1, your value should not go beyond the 0. How many times you try to damage, it should not go beyond. Okay, now our purpose is still pending. Like we have the armor now, the which means the armor got damaged. So what should we need to do next? We need to say like I'm going to arrange the stuff a little bit. So we need to say like we need to start damaging the player's health. Okay, so here going to drag and drop the health and do the same operation. Okay, so instead of doing this I'm going to select this all, control D for duplicate. So instead of this armor I'm going to have the health. Same, we need to clamp the value, right? So we instead of setting the armor, now here we need to set the health variable. Okay, hold on the alt key and drag and drop this variable here. Now in the for statement I need to connect this pin. Same thing like the print string, you need to connect the variable, just connect this stuff q, and a small change is now the health is getting reduced, right? So I'm going to just make the red color to indicate like we are losing the health. Let's click the play. After the armor getting got damaged, now you see our health is getting damaged in the red color. Okay, after the 0 it will be continuously 0 because there is no health. You need to just uh, make a branch here and need to compare whether we have lose the health or not. Okay, so that is about the function. So this is the entire functionality. So let's understand the functionality of this function once again and we can wrap up the video. So we gotta say here like we need to damage the player, and when we start damaging the player, first we are checking out like I gotta open the paint window to show this up. So first of all what we are doing is like we are just making the health variable, right? So instead of this we are first checking the armor is greater than 0. Okay, if this was true, then what should we need to do? We are going to reduce the armor minus the damage and we are assigning it to the armor value. So we are assigning this to the armor value. Okay, but why we are using the clamp here? Because sometimes the value becomes the negative value. Okay, so what we are doing is like we are making the clamp functionality. So clamp is one more another function that is the default function in the Unreal Engine blueprint. Okay, armor minus damage. We are clamping the value. So the parameter should be like around it should be like around the 0 and the armor minus damage. Then we are finally setting this value up and we are finally printing the output. So this is the logic that we have. This is the pseudo logic and this is the code logic that we have done here. That's all about the functions. So functions can take the inputs, right? So what about the output? The function can able to give the output as well. For example, we gotta say here like what is the final health that is pending. So if we gotta say here like the purpose of this function is to directly damage the player. So we should need to take the health as the concern here. Okay. So we will talk about the functions like what is meant by the pure functions and how should we what is meant by the pass by value, pass by reference concept in the programming and how should we extend this functionality further better in the next video. Okay. Let's wrap it up for today.